Forget everything you thought you knew about the Eagles' wide receiver room, because a forgotten name is suddenly making big noise in Philly. A player who was once cast aside, who barely touched the field in San Francisco, has exploded onto the scene in Philadelphia. And now, he might just steal a roster spot from under everyone's nose. We're talking speed. We're talking hunger. We're talking about a comeback story that could shock Eagles Nation. His name, Danny Gray. And this might be the most unexpected training camp battle of the summer. Philadelphia, the city of champions and the home of football passion. But right now, something surprising is happening at Eagles camp, and most fans don't even see it coming. ESPN recently released a list of the biggest surprise players on all 32 NFL teams. And when they got to the Eagles, their pick raised some eyebrows. Danny Gray, a name many had forgotten, is suddenly turning heads in practice. Let's rewind for a moment. Danny Gray was drafted in the 3rd round back in 2022 by the San Francisco 49ers. He had blazing speed, 4.33 in the 40-yard dash, but his time in San Fran didn't go as planned. Injuries held him back. He barely saw the field. In fact, he had just one catch with the 49ers before they let him go. After that, most people counted him out. But the Eagles saw something different. They picked him up quietly last August and added him to the practice squad. Fast forward to this off-season, and now he's flying past defenders in OTAs and minicamp. Reporters at practice said he looked explosive. He's beating DBs deep. He's catching balls over the middle. He's playing like a man on a mission. Danny Gray is back. But here's what makes this even more exciting. The Eagles already have one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Throw in Jahan Dotson, and the top 3 spots seem locked in. But those last 2 wide receiver spots, totally up for grabs. Danny Gray is now fighting to make this team, battling guys like Aeneas Smith, Avery Williams, and Terrace Marshall. And the way he's playing, he might just take one of those spots. Yes, this offense still flows through Saquon Barkley, through Dallas Goedert, and of course through Jalen Hurts. But in today's NFL, depth matters, and Gray could be the speed threat that gives this Eagles offense another dangerous weapon. This isn't just a camp story, this is a shot at redemption. Danny Gray was almost forgotten. Now, he's forcing the NFL to remember his name. So now it's your turn. What do you think? Does Danny Gray deserve a real shot at making the roster? Can he turn his speed into something special for the Eagles this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments and rate your confidence in this WR group from 1 to 10. Let's talk about it, Birds fans. Let's be real, ever since Nick Sirianni took over, the Eagles just haven't been able to lock down that WR3 spot. They've tried. They've cycled through names like Julio Jones, Olamide Zaccoz, and Zach Pascal. And honestly, none of them truly worked. Pascal was barely targeted. Julio came in past his prime. The position felt more like a revolving door than a real weapon. And while the top 2 receivers, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, have been elite, the drop-off after them has been obvious. But now, that might finally change, because Jahan Dotson is here. And this guy, he's got something real to offer. Yes, people sleep on Dotson. His time in Washington didn't meet expectations. He was a former first-round pick who didn't quite live up to the hype. But don't let that fool you. The talent is still there. Last year, when AJ and Smitty sat out in Week 18, Dotson stepped up as WR1 and looked sharp. Against Dallas late in the season, same story. Given more chances, he produced. And let's not forget the playoffs. Wild card round. Dotson catches the first touchdown of the postseason. Super Bowl run. Early against Kansas City, Hurts finds Dotson deep down the sideline, and Dotson torched his man. That's not a fluke. That's a player who can contribute when it matters. Still, the reality is, most teams only keep 5 wide receivers on the 53-man roster. So after AJ, Devonta, and Dotson, that leaves 2 spots. And the race for WR4 and WR5 is wide open. That's where Danny Gray enters the battle. Gray came out of SMU and made noise in college. There was one game against TCU where he just exploded. Big time yards, deep catches, pure speed. That's always been his biggest weapon. Speed! Real, blazing speed. A 4.33 40-yard dash kind of speed. And that's not just for show. When a guy like Danny Gray steps on the field, defenses have to respect it. That speed can pull safeties deep, open up the middle of the field, and create chances underneath for A.J. Brown, for Devonta, and especially for tight end Dallas Goedert. He stretches the field. He opens space. He changes how defenses line up. And guess what? According to ESPN's Tim McManus, Gray isn't just running go routes. He's been beating defenders across the middle, too. That's the part people didn't expect. Now imagine this. You've got Brown and Smith running crosses. Dallas Goedert sitting in the soft zones. Saquon Barkley drawing attention from linebackers. And suddenly, Danny Gray takes off deep. Boom. One broken assignment and it's 6 points. There's no other receiver on this Eagles roster with that level of raw speed. None. Even though his time in San Francisco flopped, and yes, it was rough, that wasn't just about him. Kyle Shanahan is notoriously tough on young wide receivers. Gray had injuries. He was small for the position. He wasn't ready. But now, he's healthy. He's focused. And he's in a system that just might know how to use him. Kevin Pachulo, the Eagles' passing game coordinator, has to be looking at that speed and thinking, we can weaponize this. Danny Gray's story isn't over. It might just be beginning, right here in Philadelphia. Let's talk truth for a second. Danny Gray never made the 49ers final roster. He didn't live up to what they hoped when they drafted him. But what happened next says a lot. The Eagles moved fast. Right after he was cut by San Francisco, they scooped him up and signed him to the practice squad. They didn't hesitate. They saw something in him, something others missed. Now, fast forward to this offseason. And suddenly, Danny Gray is making plays. He's faster, sharper, more confident. He's turning heads in spring workouts. But here comes the big question. It's one thing to look great in shorts. It's another to shine when the pads come on. We've seen it before. Remember Quez Watkins? He was the king of spring practices. Nobody could touch him when it was no contact. But when the preseason games started, when defenders could press him, jam him, tackle him, everything changed. So now we ask, will Danny Gray hold up when things get physical? Can he run through contact? Can he win when it's man-to-man and the defender's in his face? Or will he fade, just like Quez did? This is what training camp is going to reveal. And trust me, it's not just Danny fighting for a spot. Terrace Marshall is another name you need to watch. He's a former second-round pick, stands 6'2", 200 pounds, and runs a 4.440. Big, fast, explosive. If he puts it together, he and Gray could both make the roster. Yes, even over some guys who were just drafted, like Aeneas Smith and Johnny Wilson. Both rookies taken in the 2024 NFL Draft. But let's be honest, draft status doesn't matter now. This isn't about where you were picked. It's about who the best 5 guys are heading into week 1. And if Gray and Marshall keep balling, they might push those rookies right out the door. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Avery Williams. This guy, he's a wild card. He started his career as a defensive back. Then Atlanta moved him around, running back, slot receiver, even tight end. And oh yeah, he became one of the best returners in the league. That kind of versatility is rare. He can give you offense. He can give you special teams. And in a pinch, he can even line up at cornerback. That's massive value, especially when you're fighting for the last few roster spots. So here's what we've got. A former bust with blazing speed, trying to rewrite his story. A big-bodied receiver with all the tools, just waiting to break out. A do-it-all weapon who can contribute in every phase of the game. And only a couple spots left. This wide receiver battle might be the most underrated and most exciting story heading into Eagles camp. But let's zoom out for a second. It's not just Philly making noise this summer. ESPN also highlighted surprise players across the NFC East, the division that defines the Eagles' season. Across the NFC East, Commanders defensive tackle Darren Payne was spotlighted. In 2022, he had 11.5 sacks. Since then, just 8 sacks total over 2 years. His impact has dropped. His pass rush win rate has dipped. And even though he's not in a contract year, he could be cut next offseason to save $16 million. Coach Dan Quinn says Payne looks laser-focused. Washington needs him to bounce back, or their D-line could crumble. Cowboys, they traded for Kaya Elam, a former first-round pick from the Bills. So far in camp, he's made plays, multiple interceptions, sticky coverage. The Cowboys desperately need help at corner, with Trevon Diggs and Jordan Lewis both working back from injuries. If Elam keeps this up in camp, he could be a key part of Dallas's defense. Giants, watch out for safety Dane Belton. Everyone thought he'd disappear after the Giants signed star safety Jevon Holland. But Belton has had a huge spring, 3 picks in 5 practices. Even if he doesn't start, coaches are finding ways to keep him on the field. Turnovers win games, and Belton is delivering them. So yeah, this stuff matters. The NFC East runs through teams like Washington, Dallas, and New York, and the Eagles face them twice each every year. That's 6 games that could decide whether Philly makes the playoffs or sits at home. And it all starts with camp battles like this one, with Danny Gray, Terrace Marshall, Avery Williams, and the rest fighting for a dream. Now it's your turn. I want to hear from you. Who's making the final WR group in Philly? Can Danny Gray finally live up to his potential? Will versatility win out over draft position? Drop your predictions in the comments. Rank your top 5 Eagles receivers going into Week 1 and tell me who you're rooting for in camp. Let's talk about it. The fight is on. The clock is ticking, and Eagles football is almost back.